And welcome back to Where Rovers Walk. Blackburn just don't do losing at Carrow Road. But was the in-game management all correct? To answer that question, we've got our 4 Rovers fans back with us to discuss goodbye Sammy and, of course, review all the games from the Carrow Cup and the trip to Norwich. Welcome to Where Rovers Walk. All right, let's jump straight into it then. Evening, fellas. You're still unbeaten. Heading into the next game against Oxford, and then we've got a small game coming up after that, which we'll also get your views on in a second. Harry, first of all, what impressed you about the Norwich point? Deserved?
Yeah, I think at least a point was deserved. First of all, I've got to say I was wrong when I was last week when I thought that we would just sort of sit back and let Norwich attack us. First half, especially, we took the game to Norwich and outplayed them for most of that first half. Were well deserved of being in front. A point was probably a fair result in the end, but Carrow Road's one of those stadiums where a point away from home is never a bad result, really, especially at a place like Norwich.
Absolutely. Tom, we'll come on to some criticisms in a second, but who stood out for you? Your Japanese Messi's on fire at the moment.
I mean, Ohashi seems to be like a revelation since coming to Blackburn. I mean, I read something today that he's the first player in something like 70 years to score 3 goals in his first 3 league games for Rovers, which is a credit to him. I mean, the finish was incredibly brave of him to go for that header off that delicious cross by Callum Britton, who made amends from his shocker of a mistake to concede the first goal through when Josh Sargent went through and thumped it in. It was really also to see Ohashi put Shane Duffy on his backside after he was giving it some stick to the Rovers fans after going 2-1 up. But I thought Ohashi, he seems like a breath of fresh air. Like we said last week, he seems really keen to get involved. The fact he does interviews in English as well when it's not his first language. He's only been in the country a few weeks. I think he's going to be a real fan's favourite come this season. And I think I've heard a few people saying, Smodic who?
We'll get into that in a bit as well. Cheers for that, Tom. Mark, there were some criticisms of Blackburn's approach to conceding. They decided to take their foot off the gas, and only when they went 2-1 down did they apply that gas again. First of all, is that an accurate analysis, and why did you think that happened?
Yeah, I think it is. It's accurate that, and I think it's. I don't know. It's always been a frustrating thing with Rovers that sometimes. I think as you've got to give credit to Norwich, I think for the way they came back into it as well, and obviously with them being the home team, you expect them at some stage to reply and start having a go back. But for me, it's a positive because. Previous Rovers teams, I think 2-1 down, and it might have been game over, possibly 3-1. But I think they showed a lot of resilience to then go again, and obviously get that equaliser. Obviously, quite a few of the new lads that we have got, some of them signed fairly late in the summer, so they've not really had that pre-season. So again, probably tired legs played a part in that because a lot of the lads played at Stockport as well midweek. But yeah, I think for me, overall, I can only take the positives from that on Saturday.
Okay. That links us on to the next criticism then, because when the Stockport starting 11 was announced, Jason, there were lots of fans going, "What is he doing?" I mean, there was still, I think, 6 changes, but that was a strong lineup. Did he need to go that strong away at Stockport? And did it have an impact on the Norwich game?
Possibly. I mean, the first half we were really good, so I think he probably started to come into play later on in the Norwich game. I think a couple of players we played. I expected more changes myself. I thought even the bench was pretty strong. There weren't a lot of academy players, even 1 or 2 maybe that were about. So I was surprised. But I think John Eustace seems to like the cup. we've had a couple of good runs lately, last few seasons. So maybe he's seen it as that. He obviously wants a cut run. It's good for the fans, I think. Keeps the fans on side as well. Good cut run. But yeah, I was surprised with how strong he went, to be fair. I thought I expected to see a few more young ones than that.
Okay. We're going to ask you all at the end of the video for your central defence ranks of where you think Rovers are in terms of central defenders. I also want to ask you to put in the comments watching who's the best partnership that Rovers have ever had at the back in a Blackburn shirts. And we'll see if it matches up to any of these four guys' views on that in a second. And of course, we're going to chat about Oxford United also in a second. But first of all, let's have a look at some takes on that Norwich game to see whether or not you agree with what's been said. Some of it was very pleasant, although we've got the first bit of criticisms coming in, and it's all directed towards Eustace. Let's see if you think it's unfair. Okay, Harry, you can have the first one. We know we don't have any John Eustace slagging off on this channel, but we've got our first one of the season here. Tommy says, overall good point, but Eustace has to manage games better from a winning position. Why never push for a second until we concede? Just sit back and play boring negative football, letting the opposition have the momentum. Guy and Ohashi need to start the next game onto the next. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of understand what he's saying. There is a point that we have seen at times that we will sit off and try and see a game out rather than push on and score a hatful of goals. I actually think, I mean, I might be completely wrong. I actually think it wasn't in the game plan to sit off. I think we did want to try and push on and score. I don't think Eustace said that we're going to rest on our laurels here. I think that Norwich just came at us with a real high energy and attack after attack in the second half. And like we mentioned earlier, a lot of the players played in the cup, probably tired, not most of the Norwich side were rested in the cup game, so they were a lot fresher. And I think we just couldn't deal with their attacks at times. But I do think, again, it shows to take the positive rather than being a negative. The way that we respond to those mistakes of conceding those goals has been really positive this season. We look at Derby when it went to 1-1. The way we responded then was really good, and it was really we started playing much better football when we went behind at Norwich. And it's points from losing positions, which is a vital thing for any team that wants to do well. It's something that Rovers have really struggled with in recent years. So being able to get those points from losing positions, although you could argue it's also points lost from winning positions, it's a step in the right direction. I agree that Gay and Ahashi both have to start the next game. Kind of difficult to see who drops out for Ahashi to come in, but I think is 3 goals in 3 games. You've got to start him at some point, haven't you?
Absolutely, yeah. It's just thanks, Harry. It's the same point made by Kyle here, but Kyle also goes to say Buckley deserves a chance over Costello, who I thought was poor at Norwich. Do you agree with that decision?
I wouldn't really say he had a poor game, Rankin Costello. Yeah, he didn't stand out to me as having a bit of a stinker, but I can completely see the argument for John Buckley to play. I mean, he was captain against Stockport midweek, and he played really well. And it surprised me because I've never really seen him play as a captain for Rovers before. Because he's only 24, but he's as a Blackburn lad, come through the academy, knows the club, and I think he has that bit of something that a lot of players sometimes lack. He can see a pass, he can see a goal. He's got a bit of creativity that sometimes we do lack in midfield. I like the fact that he went with Travis and Tronstad in central midfield. I think Travis is a real battler and a leader, and I think Tronstad complements him quite well. Where Buckley can fit into that, I'd see Buckley as more of an attacking, central midfielder rather than a wide man where Rankin Costello is playing. But I think, like what Kyle has said here, we were very clinical today and we rode our luck massively in that game. I know we're not going into too much detail about Pears. He made a great save, but also he had a few hiccups and he got helped out of jail a few times by the defenders and the midfielders coming back to help him out, because Norwich could have been 2 or 3 in a little. They hit the crossbar. They had a few good saves. They should have scored a few more goals. So I think we were clinical in a couple of shots we had on goal. But I think Buckley, if you can get him into that team somewhere, I think he merits a place, but I don't know at the expense of Rankin Costello's. I think he's been very, very consistent the last couple of seasons, and I think he warrants his own place in his own right in that team.
Okay. Jason, this last point says that we still need to add quality to the squad in obvious areas. Explain to the neutral, what are those obvious areas?
Goalkeeper. I'd bring 2 of them in, possibly 3. I think we need to do that. For me, I think Percy's just not commanding enough at the back. He don't command his area enough. I don't think he gives us any form of safety on coins. So goalkeeper for me has to be number 1. We need, and I think we need to look for number 1. I don't think we need to look. I don't think we should be looking for someone to compete. I think we need to look for someone who goes in the team, who's experienced. I think with Markande going, I think we've got to look at another wide player. I mean, there's rumours going around about £6 million Jay Stansfield, which I don't know where that's come from. I don't know how much is in that. I'm not sure if we need another striker. I don't think we do. I think he should be more sort of middle of the park and I mean, defend. I mean, Scott Watson's out for a while. We do have an history picking up knocks with centre backs and defenders as the season goes on. So, I mean, I'm surprised we've not got a lone player in yet. So I think maybe the covers and the extra players we're going to get are probably going to be lone players. But I would say another wide player, maybe a striker. There seems to be getting rumoured. A goalkeeper has to be the number 1 priority. If we're spending any money, we should be spending on a goalkeeper for me to come in and be number 1.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Oxford United at home next then, Mark. Have you been impressed with them so far? I'm not sure how much you've seen of them. And if so, what starting 11 changes need to be made to accommodate the way that they play?
I have been quite surprised in how well Oxford have started this season. And I think it will be a difficult game on Saturday. I don't think it'll be easy by any stretch. I think the game at Coventry on Friday night, I think they pushed them right to the end, and Coventry got that winner in the 95th minute. So I think it'll be a tough game. It looks like they've got goals in them as well. So changes, it's hard to say really, because again, you know, it was a good point, still unbeaten. I'd probably be at this stage potentially sticking with the same 11, and then hopefully, you know, obviously you want your subs making an impact, which obviously Ohashi has done so far. So yeah, it's difficult. I think again going back to the midfield area, I think Buckley. I mean, he was absolutely outstanding at Stockport last Tuesday night. Probably one of the best midfield performances I've seen from a Rovers player in a long time. So I think he's definitely knocking on the door. But I think Eustace could be wrong, but I think he'll stick with the same 11.
Okay, all right. The other 3 of you will forgive me just indulging Harry in this next question because it's a gentleman we spent many hours last year talking about. Sammy's gone, Harry. I'm going to ask you if you can to put into 60 seconds your eulogy to him. 11 million in the bank, or potentially up to 11 million in the bank. A Sammy-sized hole left, but just talk to us briefly, if you can, about what he has given to this club, if you can.
He's a player that's just he's moved me. There's one way to describe it. He's moved me. So many special moments from such a special player, and a real character as well. You saw him on social media things in the dressing room. He was a real character, player that you love to be around in the team. Iconic moments. I know the game we didn't win against Sheffield United, but that first goal, goals against Leicester, both Leicester away games, one in the cup and last game of the season, Leeds, the late goal against Newcastle, and just carried that team on his back at times where it felt like we were heading in one direction. He was desperate to pull us out of a rut. So yeah, I'm upset that he's not here anymore, but I wish him the best in the Premier League. I think we were right to let him go. He deserves that shot. He's 28 now. He's probably not going to get another chance at getting a move to the Premier League. So yeah, all the best to him. I wish him all the best. Thank you for all the memories.
Well said. Thank you. Thanks, Harry. Okay, let's have a chat then about the current squad. We did goalkeepers last week, and I made my thoughts very clear on that. I'll keep stum this week about your central defenders. This obviously lists those which are registered as a central defender on transfermarket.com. I think some have played left back, right back, and central midfield. Tom, is this an area which you are conceivably quite strong in?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. I mean, it was nice to see that we recruited experience after losing Scott Wharton to a quite horrific injury, and looks like he's out for the whole season. I think we have got quite a strong centre back with those 5 players there. You can see. I mean, I think the favoured centre back pairing by Eustace will be Dom Hyman and Hayden Carter. I do like both of them, how they operate. I think Hayden Carter is technically a very good player. He's good with his feet, as you saw against Derby when he, put those 2 double players on the floor and then he put it across for Hyman to score. I think Hyman's a leader, a natural leader, even though he may not have the captain's armband this year. I think he is a natural leader. He came in from Coventry as the captain straight away. He made a few little mistakes last season, but I think the positives for him massively outweigh the few mistakes he made. Any Coventry fan I've spoken to speaks really highly of him, as does the other bloke who I have to admit I was very sceptical when we bought him last season in Carl McFadden. I thought, why on earth are we signing a 37-year-old central defender? But by God, if I change my mind on him, he's an absolute rock at the back. And I think any sort of physical contest, I'm thinking like Burnley away, I would start Dom Hyman, Carl McFadden all day long, because I think they're both up for the battle. He takes no nonsense. He puts his head on the line, and he's a real warrior and a real fan's favourite straight away. I think Danny Barth as well has come in as a good squad player. So I think with regard to the kind of centre-back pairings, I think we've got a lot of strength and depth there. And I think I'm quite optimistic about how the season could progress. Should one of those players get injured, I think we've got quite a few players there that are ready to step in and take their spot.
Okay. Mark, who do you see then as the pairing going forward that we're going to be speaking about the most?
Yeah, I think like Tom said, I think it'll definitely be Hyam and Carter. I think Carter is, again, the games so far this season, he seems to have gone to another level to me. I've always liked Carter, but he looks stronger. Great with the ball at his feet. Everything. He seems to be that all-round defender now. So I certainly think that'll be the favoured 2. But the other lads that he's brought in, proven championship experience. It's a long season, very long season. And there'll be no doubt, I'm sure they'll get 15, 20 games in somewhere along the line. So I'm happy with the centre back positions, definitely.
Okay. Next week, then, we're going to be looking at left backs and right backs, and we're also going to be talking next week about Burnley. And had Blackburn won at Norwich, then we'd have been talking about first versus second in the table at the very least. I won't ask too much about them down the road because we'll save that for next week. But Jason, what does this fixture do to you as a Blackburn fan when it comes up? Does it change you as a person? Does it change your match day routines? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, it changes where I park on match day because I normally try to eat away, and so I always go on the park on my drive. I go on there when Burnley on. Yeah, it's the first fixtures you look for when the fixtures are released. and then the moment you see you start planning your day there and then, don't you? So it does. It's as soon as you see it, once you start getting sort of 3-4 weeks building up to the game, it's the only game you start thinking about the derbies, what you live for as a fan. Really, it's not just the bragging rights. It's the atmosphere. It's the day. It's for me. I've been to a Manchester derby before when I was younger, unfortunately. But for me, the atmosphere in a Blackburn-Burnley derby is just it's something else. It's brilliant.
There was a social media clip of Sam Allardyce, I think, interviewing Sammy Smodics for some betting company, I forget which one, and Sam Allardyce was himself talking about, of all the derbies he's been part of, this is the nastiest that he's been part of. So, yes, I shall look forward to next week, us having a claret in the room with us, and you all being on your best behaviour. Before we get to that, though, we did ask you at the start of the video which central defending pair or central defensive pair were the best for Blackburn of all time. Shall we go in age order here? Tom, sorry, Harry, I think you're younger than Tom, I suspect. So we'll go with you first.
Well, growing up for me, just towards the twilight ends of the Premier League era, it was Samba and Nelson, who I loved at the back for Rovers. Samba, the massive unit, great from court, score. I mean, we'd stick him up front for the last 10 minutes of every other game just to try and get us a goal. And Nelson was a leader there for years. Unlike Samba, didn't score a goal for the longest time. But yeah, I mean, it's a bit of. I was very young at the time, but I remember just growing up seeing those two, and yeah, that's sort of my memory of Rovers at the peak of me seeing them anyway.
Okay, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, I was about 17, 18 when watching Nelson and Samba play. I'm going to agree with Harry because, I mean, I was 7 when we won the league, and I can obviously appreciate Hendry and Berg and what they did, and I went to a couple of games as a child. But memory-wise, I had some fantastic times watching Rovers at university when we had those two warriors at the back. I mean, Nelson, he was such a composed footballer. He came in relatively unknown from DC United, and he was assured, and he's strong, and he's physically bigger than he looks on the telly. And when you see him in person, he's about 6'4". And then, you know, this unknown quantity known as Christopher Samba comes in from Berlin, and I was thinking, who on earth's this big bloke coming in, and he lit the league apart. I mean, him and Samba together. Blackburn were physical as it was, but those two would take absolutely no prisoners. And I think teams hated playing against Rovers. That kind of period of 2008, 2010, when Blackburn were absolutely quality. We had some real sure defenders with the quality of like Morten Gamps Pedersen and Roque Santa Cruz, and you know, watched Liverpool Club at that time, because for me as a Blackburn fan, growing up and being a teenager in that period at university, it was unbelievable to see the players we had back then, and those two at the back, Nelson and Chris Samba, they complemented each other perfectly. Samba with the big aerial presence, and Nelson with the technical prowess of positioning and his reading of the game. I could talk for hours about those two as a pair. So for me personally, it's Ryan Nelson and Chris Samba as Blackburn's best centre-back pairing.
Okay, so Mark and Jason, we can do this one together, because I suspect we're going down the Hendry and Berg route, unless you're going to surprise me with anything even before the 90s. Mark?
I've got to 100% agree with Harry and Tom. The Hendry and Berg is obviously right up there, and from an individual point of view, Colin Hendry is the best defender I've ever watched live. But for a defensive partnership, and I think the two lads, Harry and Tom, have just completely summed it up perfectly. Samba and Nelson, and they complemented each other so good. Absolute warriors. So absolutely, yeah, I've seen a lot of good defenders over the years, a lot of good partnerships, but yeah, Samba and Nelson, 100%.
Go on, Jason, make this a full house.
Yeah, it is a full house, absolutely. I think, like Mark said, Hendry, Berg, Pierce as well. There's just been some great. It's it's not often two centre-backs give you excitement. They're there to do a job, to stop things happening. Samba was so excited to watch play football. He'd drive forward it. Similar to Aiden Carter now. He loves the ball at his feet. Likes running with the ball. He's not scared of taking a player on a two, running it from defence. But I agree. It's got to be them two.
Okay. If you can beat that, I doubt you will. Comment below, and we'll get these lot to react to it next week. Cheers, fellas. Enjoy your game against Oxford, and we will catch you all next week to chat all things Burnley. Cheers for now.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers,
Thanks,
guys.
Thanks,
you.
guys.